Just a heads up, I won't be using anything from the Boom comics as they aren't canon, so to all you Draken enthusiasts, you can let yourselves out. Also, if you think I'm lying about anything said in this video, you can go watch the episode for yourself, which is free on YouTube. Like, every single Power Rangers episode you can think of, from like MMPR to like whatever Dino Charge, I think that's the latest one with YouTube right now. You can just watch that yourself for free on YouTube. And to the good folks at Toei, when talking about Tommy's Dino Thunder Black form, most people seem to like this form, but this admiration doesn't seem to extend to where he stands with other Black Rangers or Rangers in general power-wise. There are some people who are understandably annoyed by his rabid fanboys, so they'll allow their frustrations towards them to bleed into Tommy's scaling, essentially leading to heavily downplaying him, claiming he'd get beat by Mystic Force or even Jungle Fury characters, when that's not the case at all. Which is why in this video I'm going to be explaining why he'd pretty much stomp them out and rob them of their capes and wands with scaling. I'm also going to be showing some love to his students, cause this is just insane disrespectful downplay. Before going over Tommy's physical stats, I'd like to go over his equipment, such as his Dino Gem that grants him the power of invisibility while also boosting his physical stats and fighting skills, Raptor Rider, Dino ATV, which should be able to keep up with the Raptor cycles, his Brachio Staff, which is arguably his most versatile weapon, that is ironically used as a... He can wield the elements of wind, earth, fire, and water. He's also able to fire both small and large scale energy blasts. Tommy's also able to summon his Brachio Zord, which houses the main trio Zords. He can also pilot Connor's personal Zord, the Triassic Megazord, which is more powerful than the Thundersaurus Megazord. Tommy has very linear AP scaling from Unmorphed to Super Dino mode. In Unmorphed, he should be around Large Island level, seeing as how when he was 15 or 17, he was able to beat down Goldar on some Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat with no powers. His rival, Jason, could do the same. Billy, who is by no means a weak fighter, but should scale below Jason and Tommy, was able to knock down Goldar with a flying drop kick. Goldar should be comparable to Rita, who casually vaporizes an island, which should get her to Large Island level. Even if you think Goldar doesn't scale to her at all, there's always her brother, Rito Revolto, someone who Goldar definitely scales to, who produced an impact so great he created a crater calc to be around Large Island level. This impact could be felt by Billy, who was on Earth. Aisha in her ninja form was even seen toying with Rito. And even when backed by Tango warriors, Goldar thought it'd be best to just retreat even though he was only facing the Rangers in ninja form. So it's pretty safe to say the MMPR form should scale to around Larger Island level AP. Another thing, just because something is unbelievable doesn't take away from the fact that it just happened. So you can whine and moan all you want about how it doesn't make sense, despite me naming two other proficient fighters, one of which Tommy is stronger than. Tommy beat down Goldar fair and square unmorphed with no powers. So go ahead and cope in the comments, nothing's gonna change that. Moving on, he even has a statement of being the toughest monster pre-Zed.
Who's your toughest monster?
Goldar is
Definitely.
He's the strongest of all the bad guys. He's the meanest of all the bad guys. And we always get him, we think we're gonna get him, and then he skins out.
This next bit of scaling is optional because I understand if you don't agree with it. In the Dino Thunder episode, Fighting Spirit, where Tommy is put into a mindscape world created by his Dino Gem, he battles past versions of himself. Mind you, the Dino Gems were created by the Morphin Masters themselves, beings who created the Morphing Grid. Also, his past forms state that they will destroy him if he doesn't fight. One last thing to address is he does not have access to any Dino Gem powers in this world. He even looks to his wrist to see his Dino Brace with the missing Dino Gem. His first fight is against the Red Zeo Ranger, who he's able to go blow for blow with, and he even beats him into retreating. In his next fight, he goes up against a White Mighty Morphin Ranger, who he also beats into retreating. Here's the strange part. For some reason, the White Ranger calls the Green Ranger Tommy's greatest challenge, which is strange when Zordon himself made the White Ranger even more powerful than the Green Ranger. It doesn't make sense that the Green Ranger would be an even greater challenge when Tommy already beat his Zeo Ranger form. The Zeo powers were stated to be more advanced and next level compared to the MMPR powers by Zordon himself. They even faced threats so dangerous that Zed and Rita, characters who kinda like toyed with the MMPR Rangers, straight up fled from the moon in fear of being wiped out by King Mondo and the Machine Empire. So however strong you think Zed is, Zeo Ranger Tommy is even stronger than that. Moving on, Tommy battles the Green Ranger. He does pretty well up until he's blasted with energy from his Dragon Dagger. Tommy doesn't outright beat his Green Ranger self, but it's important to look at the context. Tommy just battled two opponents who, with lore, should be much stronger than the Green Ranger, so it'd be understandably safe to assume he's either tired or fatigued. Had he faced the Green Ranger first without any prior fights, it would have ended up like his fight against the Red Zeo Ranger. Again, it's completely fine if you think the Mindscape fights don't have any actual scaling, but he still gets to large island level AP or however strong you think Goldar is, due to his younger self dog walking Goldar. Moving on to his Black Ranger form, while he's not a walking powerhouse like Connor, he still hits far harder than the majority of Rangers, and that's a lot of Rangers. The first feat we will look at morphed is just a bit after he had just gotten his Dino powers. After he gets done smacking Zeltrax, he makes his way toward the Megazord-sized Goldenrod, who is much stronger than his father Zeltrax. He's even seen slapping around the Thundersaurus Megazord casually, but things change as soon as Tommy brings out his Brachio staff and starts using his elemental function. Goldenrod is met with a Titan-sized stream of wind, then put into a ravine so deep that even a being as big as him can't get out of, and engulfed in flames so intense he gets destroyed. Now to my Mystic Force enthusiasts, have you ever seen Vita create winds that large, Xander cause an earthquake so devastating it creates ravines that deep, or Nick and his dad create flames of that magnitude? Madison isn't safe either. Tommy can casually create tsunamis so large the Thundersaurus Megazord can surf on it while riding the Stegazord. Has she ever created waves that large? The only other time something like this has ever been done is when someone brought out an entire Battleizer to deal with an opponent much weaker than Goldenrod. So as you can see, we're already in monstrous territories of power. This next bit of scaling comes from SPD, more specifically the episode Wormhole, where Tommy and Anubis fight together against Zeltrax. Now Zeltrax does lose this fight, but there's context prior to the team up. Zeltrax was already losing against Tommy. I mean, look at him. Does that look like someone who's winning a fight? During the fight, Kruger seems to be scoring the most hits, but there's actually a reason for that. If you slow down the fight, you'll actually see that Tommy's creating openings for Anubis to land hits. What's impressive is that Zeltrax can briefly trade blows with Anubis despite getting jumped. Now Anubis can take on and defeat opponents that can no-diff most of the B squad even in swap mode. The SPD Rangers have been shown to be able to take on a criminal who, quote, left Alpha Centauri in ruins. He'll have no problem with destroying Earth. It's important to note that Anubis emphasizes on the fact that he'll have no problem with destroying Earth. The SPD Rangers can trade blows with and even beat him. For those of you who don't know, Alpha Centauri is a triple star system containing 3 stars. Star A is 10% more massive than our Sun. Star B is 90% of our Sun's mass. And Star C is a red dwarf star, which leaves Anubis with multi-solar system AP. Zeltrax can trade blows with him in base, and Tommy was just seen thrashing Zeltrax earlier. In one of the final episodes of Dino Thunder, Tommy is seen battling Super Zeltrax by himself. Now there are a few things I'd like to point out. In his first appearance, Super Zeltrax was manhandling Tommy and Trent at the same time, and casually blasted away the entire team. Tommy is seen going toe-to-toe with Super Zeltrax and winning. He even styles on him mid-fight, which is pretty wild. The most important detail is he feels no need to go Super Dino mode against him. He uses it against Super Mesogog, but never against Zeltrax. He doesn't even feel the need to use any special attacks against him. He even pleads with his former friend to stop fighting while dog walking him. Super Zeltrax should be far stronger than anyone Tommy has ever faced previously, with scaling. Tommy's final transformation should pretty easily land him in the spot of strongest Black Ranger if he wasn't already, which he was. After the Dreamscape battle with his past forms, Tommy unlocks Super Dino mode, a mode that greatly amplifies the user's physical stats and power. Connor, when he first unlocks the form, states that he felt like he just unlocked a whole new level of power after only using it once on accident, after taking lots of damage prior to unlocking it. It also grants the user spikes throughout the exterior of their body that they can use to gouge opponents. Think Doomsday, Wolverine, Kimimaro, or Omega Shenron. You get the idea. It also makes the user more aggressive, sort of like a berserker state of mind. Tommy, in his first use of this mode, completely beats the Pterosaurus V2 into paste. Previously, the Pterosaurus was shown soloing each of the Rangers. Though it's important to note, none of the Rangers got a chance to use their Super Dino mode. Connor couldn't use his Triassic mode, which is a Battleizer. When Jack says let's battleize, take note of how Connor doesn't transform all the way into the second mode of Triassic mode. He just uses the first mode. He just calls it the Triassic Battleizer. They're both Battleizers, one is just in another stage. That being said, Connor didn't get to use his Battleizers because of the anti-morphing qualities of his blasts, which affects all the Rangers. It should be noted, Connor tries to strike at the Pterosaurus with his Tyranno staff, and nothing happens. He just gets launched away. But Tommy Unmorphed knocks him down with one kick. Now, I will give it to you that the Pterosaurus might have been off guard, but it's still pretty impressive taking into account his raw durability otherwise. But he sent the Pterosaurus flying with a flurry of kicks in base morph. Now, Connor and the rest do get a lot stronger than this, it's just interesting to point out. Now, this next part is very important. It comes from the Beast Morphers crossover between all the Dino teams. Kira, while in Super Dino mode, is seen damaging and knocking back Snide, then destroys him alongside her teammates. If you watch my video on how strong Connor is, then you'd know Snide's other half has been stated to have destroyed several galaxies. Snide scales to, if not higher than Heckle, since he was created by the Dark Energem. Energems are stated to transcend space and time. We've seen that the Dark Energem creates alter egos who should scale to, if not higher than whoever comes into contact with it, as seen with Xenowing and Doomwing. Snide can also take a direct blast from the Dino Charge team's victory final strike, without being destroyed. In fact, he gets back up without a scratch and continues fighting as if nothing happened. If that wasn't enough, before he got blasted, he was taking hits from the Red Ranger in Battleizer mode and Gold Ranger. Now, the Dino Charge team is incredibly strong, but the Dino Thunder team is just so much better. It took 3 Rangers in Super Dino mode to reduce Snide to ashes, as opposed to the 6 that were there, 2 of which were a 6 Ranger and a Red Ranger in Battleizer mode. And for everyone that hypes up this statement, then the Dino Thunder team would scale above this, seeing as how 3 of them easily destroyed someone who could fight 6 of them wielding that power, and tank their strongest attack in the form of a blast. How does this relate to Tommy Sunday, you might ask? Well, since Tommy naturally scales above Kira throughout the entire season of Dino Thunder, and still has his Ranger powers as seen all the way in Ninja Steel, Tommy's AP in Super Dino mode should scale to the feat performed by Kira against Snide, which would be Galaxy to multi-galaxy level. This part is more statements than feats to further reinforce how powerful Tommy's Dino Thunder Black form is. In the episode History, Cat Manx states that the Dino Thunder team has faced off against some of the most treacherous villains in all of history. SPD takes place in the year 2025, so this would include all the teams up until the year 2025. This statement is completely sound, seeing as how SPD would have files on every team up to 2025, just like Dino Thunder had the same for teams up until 2004. For reference, Mesogog, the main villain of Dino Thunder, is often underestimated since he isn't on the field as much as his subordinates, when he's actually far stronger than most people think. A good display of Mesogog's monstrous might is in his fight against Lothor, where he very easily overpowers him and ends the fight by turning him into his personal lightning collection figure. During the fight, he even tanks a laser blast from Lothor before bodying him. For reference, Lothor completely destroyed Sane's Battleizer with one laser blast. That's basically him just casually one-shotting their heaviest hitter. Then he proceeded to beat the hell out of the Ninja Storm team, morphed and unmorphed. The Ninja Storm team has been stated by Lothor to have faced and destroyed the worst the galaxy had to offer. I'll actually be making a video on them too, so watch out for that. The interesting part about that is that Mesogog wasn't at the peak of his power. He didn't reach that until he separates from Anton Mercer. He even makes note of his new power as he creates a new monster. For whatever team you think Ninja Storm clears, Mesogog would run through all of them plus Ninja Storm. But Sunday, SPD aired in 2005. The other seasons hadn't been produced yet, so that would just be arguing in bad faith. Okay then, let's head to Super Mega Force, a team that has access to every team's power from Mighty Morphin to Super Mega Force. This statement takes place in episode 12 of Super Mega Force, so they've had a pretty good amount of time to gauge how strong each team is in comparison to each other. So the SMF team is facing off against one of Vikar's generals. Noah, the smartest of the group, makes note of how this general can hold his own against the entire team, but Troy makes the call for them to call in their legendary powers. Guess which team they call on? It's not Mighty Morphin, it's not Zeo, it's not Ninja Storm, not SPD, not Mystic Force, definitely not Jungle Fury, and for sure not Samurai. And what do you know, it's the Dino Thunder team. The reason this is important is because of the context. They're facing a villain that can take on all of them at the same time. What's more interesting is how Troy makes note of how he doesn't know how long they'll be able to hold that legendary mode. Now, it's already been established legendary mode burns through energy quickly, but Troy makes note of how much energy he's burning through with this specific mode. While in legendary mode, Jake does pretty good damage against the general. After finishing off the monster, they continue into the second phase of the battle when the monster grows in size. Troy states that with this guy's power, they're really gonna have to work together. Then the team unlocks the Dino Thunder powers, which combines the Q-Rex with the legendary Megazord. After the combination, Orion notes on how you can practically feel the power running through the Megazord. Orion says this as if no other Megazord outputs that much energy. Not convinced? How about when facing their strongest Megazord opponent, who had all the latest specs and high-end hardware, and the first Megazord combination they call to is the Dino Thunder powers. After just a few seconds, Jake notes on how quickly the legendary powers are fading. This mode is merely an imitation of the original Thundersaurus Megazord, which is far more powerful. Tommy has been shown to be able to wield the Triassic Megazord, which is superior to the Thundersaurus Megazord on his own. It's been established in Dino Thunder that you need to have enough power to be able to properly wield a Zord or Megazord. Now, it doesn't scale him to Triassic mode, but it's still an impressive feat nonetheless. It should also be worth noting Tommy can use his Dino Gem ability while morphed, as seen in the Ninja Steel crossover. Speaking of the Ninja Steel crossover, let's address the fraud in the room, Robo-Tom. This thing is a fraud. Now let me explain. Firstly, after he reveals himself to the other Rangers, Tommy says that they didn't know that the Dino Thunder Black Ranger could turn invisible, which is pretty funny when you think about it, since the first thing we see Tommy do with the Dino Gem is turn invisible. The next piece of evidence is the fight between it and the real Tommy. He gets absolutely washed and styled on by weaker forms of Tommy. The fake Tommy says that the Zeo Ranger powers can't defeat him, which obviously isn't true because he gets overpowered by both the MMPR White and Green Ranger powers, both weaker forms than Zeo per Zordon's next level statement. Even in the episode, it stated he was able to capture the others because he caught them off guard, since naturally they'd trust Tommy of all Rangers. So he didn't even beat them in a 1v1 fight. This fraudulent tin can is not only far weaker than the original Dino Thunder Black Ranger, but it can't manipulate any elements, use Super Dino mode, turn invisible, or summon Zords. It would have used those abilities if it was truly Tommy's equal. I kid you not, its best feat is getting in a lucky hit in the extended version, which isn't even canon since it was cut out of the original episode. Every other release of it doesn't seem to include it. So after that yap session on how much scaling Dino Thunder Black has, you can see why it's hard to believe a person with neurons firing in the brain and a working cerebrum says someone like Nick or RJ can beat him, which is just hilarious considering the feats and in-lore statements. Speed is often overlooked when analyzing Tommy. While he definitely isn't as fast as Connor, he's still very fast. The Power Rangers verse has plenty of LS reaction feats, both morphed and unmorphed, as well as plenty of MFTL plus calcs. To keep it simple, I'm only going to be using one. To get a good gauge of Tommy's speed, we have to look at a feat performed by Andros in the first episode of PRIS. After being outed as a spy, he calls out to his Galaxy Glider. While on the glider, we see him fly past countless stars. According to the NRAO, the average distance between stars is about 5 light years. This has been calced to be over 2,000 times the speed of light lowballed, and over 3,000 times the speed of light highballed, giving him MFTL plus travel speed on both ends. This wouldn't be the last time where we'd see something like this, as there would be times in the show where the Rangers would enter this sort of hyperspace, kinda like in Star Wars, to give you an idea of how fast they're going. What Andros does next is very important. Andros is able to swing his Spiral Saber fast enough to deflect several of these laser fire shots while moving at these speeds in the vacuum of space, which should give him MFTL plus combat and reaction speed. He did this in the first episode of In Space, so as you can imagine, he'd have an entire season's worth to get faster and stronger with each battle he participated in, so he should be far beyond his episode 1 feat by the end of the season, seeing as how he returned in Lost Galaxy to team up with Theo against Psycho Red. Shows that his fighting ability hasn't been dulled with the passage of time. Moving on to Forever Red, where we see all the Saban era Rangers team up against a new threat, looking to use Serpentera. Every Ranger here has prior or present scaling that puts him above the feat performed by Andros in episode 1 of In Space. During the battle, everyone there is able to keep pace with each other, which would include Zeo Red, which Tommy fought and beat. Even if you don't agree with the Dreamscape battle, Even the garbage fraudulent tin can imposter can keep up with the Zeo Ranger form before getting embarrassed and blown up. So through this, Tommy's base Black Ranger form should easily reach MFTL plus combat speed and reaction speed. It should be noted he is capable of high speed movement. This is definitely where Tommy shines the most, his fighting skill. If I really need to convince you that Tommy's one of, if not the most skilled fighters in the Power Rangers cosmos, then allow me to educate you. When we are first introduced to Tommy, he's around the age of 15 or 17, and is established as Jason's equal/rival, as shown when they are matched up against each other in a martial arts tournament, and their match ends in a draw. It should be worth noting Jason knows several different styles of martial arts, including but not limited to karate, kempo, taekwondo, judo, and shikido.
A lot of different martial arts. As far as my styles go, I studied kempo, I studied taekwondo, judo, shikido. I could go down the list forever and ever and ever. I have to say my favorite styles are taekwondo and kempo.
Tommy and Jason love to practice, study, and even teach martial arts for fun, so it's likely Tommy knows the same amount, if not more. They'd even spar with each other from time to time. Tommy would regularly face intergalactic conquerors with at least 10,000 years worth of battle experience, like Goldar or Zed. In a superpowered beatdown episode with the White Ranger vs Scorpion by Bat in the Sun, JDF himself actually lists some martial arts that the White Ranger knows.
But here's what the White Ranger knows. 7 different styles of mixed martial arts. I'm gonna tell you right now, from kicking, from taekwondo to kicks, to GKD, from punching to Wing Chun to Kung Fu. White Ranger knows it all. 7 different styles of mixed martial arts.
Considering he has around 5 seasons worth of battles and training, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he knew these if not more fighting styles. Heck, in Zeo he even managed to completely outbox a machine specifically made for boxing, even forcing it into relying on cheap tactics like blinding and forcing him into an electrified bar. After his teammates disable the trap, he goes right back to pummeling it. All this was done in his Zord. He's still the one piloting and controlling its movements, so he'd know how to proficiently apply boxing in hand-to-hand combat. It should be worth noting Tommy faced an enhanced version of the machine that Adam himself says he couldn't finish off alone. An interesting detail to point out is that despite not serving as a Ranger anymore since Turbo, his prowess as a fighter seems to be in peak condition, when he makes quick work of fodder enemies in Forever Red while unmorphed, and while morphed can keep up with Wes, whose skill I'll go over in the next video I'm excited about. Fast forward to Dino Thunder, we see an older Tommy with no powers, and he's able to take on crowds of Tyrannodromes, basically cyborg dinosaurs by himself, only using martial arts. He's supposed to be retired, though you could say his passion for martial arts never went away. Fast forward a bit more and he's a teacher at Reefside, mentoring the Dino Thunder team. He has a few battles against Zeltrax, Mesogog's general. Unmorphed, but most of the time, before he gains the Black Dino Gem, he'd be mainly dodging attacks from him until episode 3 of the series, where I kid you not, he fights both Elsa and Zeltrax at the same time. 2 of Mesogog's most skilled and strongest generals, while carrying 3 raptor eggs in his backpack, unmorphed with no powers. They even retreat from this Tommy because of how badly he's spanking them. Tommy would eventually bond and gain the power of the Black Dino Gem, which, as seen with his students, greatly boosts the user's physical stats and fighting capability, as his students went from having no fighting skills to being able to squad wipe crowds of Tyrannodromes on their own with hand-to-hand combat. During his fight with the White Ranger in the Mindscape, he even says he's learned a few moves before taking him down, meaning he's still growing as a fighter. So when Tommy bonds with the gem, not only are his physical stats boosted, but his already far beyond expert level fighting skill is greatly boosted as well. To get a good gauge of how good his fighting skills are, we'll use his students, who he trains, with statements to back that up in these episodes. We see that his students are able to, while holding back, fight evenly against a bloodlusted Ninja Storm team. Connor in particular is able to trade blows with Shane and even press him into retreating to higher ground. Retreating to higher ground is not the action of a vastly superior fighter with killing intent. So the Dino Thunder doesn't have any good fighting skill claim is thrown into Tartarus. Now people in an attempt to downplay this will often point to the previous Morse fight where the Dino Thunder trio quote unquote lost, when there are several key factors you have to remember. The Dino Thunder team was holding back, as evident by the fact that Kira says, "I don't want to hurt you," as she's fighting Tori. Connor, when facing the White Ranger, would at times try to reason with him. Even when he hit him with SDM, he still tried to make sure he was okay, completely letting down his guard in the process. So no, they don't want to destroy other Rangers even if they've turned evil. Another huge factor people overlook is the fact that they aren't using their signature weapons, which are more powerful than the Thundermax weapons, and don't use Super Dino mode, a transformation that greatly amplifies the user's stats. Plus, the trio is getting ambushed by god knows however many enemies, so it's not even a fair 1v1. Plus, the Ninja Storm Rangers were actively trying to destroy them, so you can't even use the same argument for them. With all those factors taken into account, Connor was able to press Shane in the second bout. For reference, Shane is the best fighter on the entire Ninja Storm team. He has the best fighting skill, feats, and statements. I'll be making a video on them too, so watch out for that. Now, how does this relate to Tommy? Well, both him and Connor should be in the same tier in terms of fighting skill, but superior in fighting skill. How we get him there is looking at the fact that Connor has been consistently shown to be able to fight evenly with the White Ranger, and we know the White Ranger can fight and defeat Zeltrax even when his powers are acting up. Him being Connor's teacher kind of implies that he still has like things to learn from him as a fighter. In terms of swordsmanship, I mean, he's been using them almost his entire career as a ranger. His skills as a swordsman are at its peak in Dino Thunder. Zeltrax, who is relative in skill to Tommy, and also mainly a swordsman, consistently gets spanked throughout the season by Tommy. Zeltrax does train, so he doesn't just stay the same level throughout the entire season, he does get better as a fighter. But that doesn't change just how consistently he loses to Tommy. In fact, there was an instance where Zeltrax was fighting Tommy and he had a platoon of Triptoids to back him up. Naturally, you'd think Zeltrax, with all his skills and powers, with the addition of a platoon of minions to help him, would come out on top, right? Nope. Tommy completely trounces all of them, Zeltrax included. Tommy didn't even feel the need to use his Super Dino mode or his elemental powers. In the SPD crossover wormhole, Zeltrax is seen fighting both Tommy and Kruger, which is impressive since Kruger is relative or superior in swordsmanship to Jack Landers, who defeated someone stated to be the strongest swordsman in history, with a sword from the closet. Zeltrax is able to take him alongside Tommy. It should be noted, before Kruger came into the battle, Tommy was already beating up Zeltrax in base, and during the fight with Zeltrax, Tommy was creating openings for Kruger to land strikes on Zeltrax. If this isn't enough to convince you of how top tier his fighting skills are, then how about in the last episode of Dino Thunder when he's able to face Super Zeltrax on his own? This version of Zeltrax was previously shown to be able to take on both the White Ranger and the Black Ranger at the same time. But now Tommy is able to take on this far superior version of Zeltrax on his own using his Brachio Staff. As a top tier swordsman, Tommy has his own technique with the Brachio Staff, the Energy Orb technique, that, when launched, engulfs the opponent and devastates them from the inside, which also seems to cause pain on contact, even when the opponent isn't engulfed. His durability should scale to his AP via Newton's third law. Each of his forms should be far more durable than the last. Not much to say, other than when he completely tanked this explosion while he was morphed. Keep in mind, Tommy was inside the ship at its core, and came out of the explosion only holding his left arm. Like, his suit is completely unaffected, showing zero signs of any scratches. Other than that, his durability should scale to his AP, as seen when he took his own energy orb and was still able to keep fighting. Nothing much to say about endurance. Should be superhuman. His will to live is stronger than any power, as stated in Fighting Spirit. That's pretty much it. Hopefully you can walk away from this video knowing just how strong Black Ranger Tommy and his students are. I had a pretty good time making it, though it was kinda hard to bounce back after Toei completely smited my other vid, something I put months of effort into, but in the end I was able to give you guys this video. Stay tuned cause I will be uploading more videos like this. My next one is SPD vs Time Force, a very fun mashup of futuristic law enforcement agencies. Were you surprised about how impressive Tommy's feats were? Share in the comments below. Till next time. This is more bonus stuff, probably brief, not really gonna take much time, I think. So, yeah. It's a scene nobody talks about in the SPD crossover. When the Dino Thunder trio were done thrashing the Trubian Empire's army, they set their eyes on Grum, ready the Z-Rex blaster, and on Shadow Ranger's signal, fire at Grum. Now, at first glance, it seems like Grum laughed it off and left. But if you pay attention to what the Shadow Ranger says next, it's a lot more impressive. He states that Grum was sent running. Now, if you know what type of person Grum is, you know it's not in its nature to run away from a fight, especially from Rangers. There is zero reason for Grum to flee. unless it was in fear of getting destroyed by the Dino Rangers or beaten into submission. Do the Dino Rangers scale to this, you might ask? Well, they've been shown to be able to take a blast from their own Z-Rex blaster and continue to fight. As we know, the Dino Rangers have access to powers above the Z-Rex blaster via Super Dino mode. And so, whatever team you think SPD can beat, Dino Thunder can beat as well, plus SPD. Okay, now till next time. See ya.